Good evening. This is Defacto. Thank you for watching us. This Defacto review is with me, Jargal Tampatarja, and I will highlight 3 topics of 3 events happened last week in Mongolia that may impact on the way Mongolians live, how Mongolians live. First is Industrialization Forum was held in Ulaanbaatar on May 26th at Corporate Convention Center. 2. Mongolia made another constitutional amendment. Third, 2023 budget amendment is proposed. Why? So these are 3 topics I would like to highlight this time. First, about this Industrialization Forum on May 26th. As Prime Minister said, it is almost 41st forum on industrialization, and he doesn't want to see that as another forum. Because there are some steps have been made for last 2 years during this current government. So this forum was organized by the government of Mongolia, in particular Ministry of Mining and Heavy Industry, National Association, and Irdenis Mongolia Group, the largest state-owned mining enterprise of Mongolia. It is not by surprise that it is mostly organized by this ministry, as a mining industry is the main industry, the major industry of Mongolian economy. It is 1/4 of GDP of the country, almost 95% of export earning, and almost 3/4 of industry output, and 70% of foreign direct investment. So logically, it is the largest industry. That's why the industrialization will be based mostly on this mining properties. Well, when we talk about mining of Mongolia, we talk first about the copper. Copper consumption in the world has a trend to increase substantially in the near future. Mongolia is making $2.7 billion on copper concentrate, and $83 million on cathode copper. It's the only small fraction of the industry that makes a value-add product in this copper industry. Second is iron. Mongolia is producing only 10% of domestic iron consumption. Mostly it is construction, the material. And it says that in 7 years from now, there will be another complex called Mongol Steel at nearby Darkhan metallurgy plant. And there will be another plant also in Altyn Shirit, and total 2,100 jobs will be created. And by 2025, Mongolia will produce half of its domestic consumption of iron materials, or steel materials. On coal, last year we have sold 32 million metric tons coal to almost China, and it will be this year 50 million increase due to more clean environment for the business, in particular sales of coal to Chinese partners. But however, this industrialization will meet a lot of challenge. It is to overcome those challenges like water resources, power, energy in particular, transport and logistics, and technology innovation, and financing, local financing, domestic financing. And there are also a lot of challenges in the environment for foreign direct investment. So at the forum, they have discussed extensively all these shortcomings of the country, including, for example, investment law will have 8 major changes, for example. I'll just name this. They will stop the restrictions for foreign direct investment, and they will solve the issue related to land consumption, land licenses. Third is about the system that solve complaints in this regard. And the fourth, there will be conditions for approaching international arbitration. Fifth, and I think to me it's very important, they say that will make clear and right and obligations of state organizations. Six is there will not be differences in taxations. Seven, they will restrict parallel monitoring and controlling, checking by the state. 8, there will be easier for visa and residence permission. These are the issues certainly addressed by the draft of new investment law in Mongolia, which is introduced by Minister of Economic Development. And there will be certain supports for foreign investment. There will be, for example, there will be investment agreement for investment over 500 billion MNT. There will be stabilization agreement that stabilizes, for example, VAT, income tax, corporate income tax, and customs tax, and a royalty. For those investment above 500 billion MNT, there will be 2 contracts. And up to 3 employees, foreign employees, will be freed from job taxation. In Mongolia, when you hire foreigners, you pay also separate tax for hiring foreigners. And it will be easier for this visa and residence permission. And Mongolia had created National Committee for Industrialization, which is consisting of state-related agencies and the private companies, particularly the largest companies like MAC, MCS, etc. Their representatives, their chairs are sitting on this commitment. And there will be 4 subcommittees. One is copper, the other is metallurgy, and coal, deep processing, and light industry. In each of them, there will be certain objects will be created. For example, in copper processing plant, it will be in Erdinet 1, Oyutalgaya 1, and there will be, in terms of iron, Mongol Kang complex, etc. And they give, for the light industry, for example, Emelt Industrial Park will be created. It's some 90 kilometers away from Ulaanbaatar city. And new Hovde production and technology park will be created. This Hovde is at the center of the Western IMAX, and there we have also a cement plant recently made. And this is a part of the zone development of Mongolia, regional development of Mongolia, if you wish. And they have been, Irkutsk Mongolia had presented a very clear plan on copper production. But plan is one thing, and they need total about billion US dollar for these 3 projects they are proposing. And for the first time, industry strategy was discussed, and how to attract foreign direct investment, not only in mining sector, but non-mining sector. And there's certain plan, but not at the level of feasibility study, but today at the level of just preliminary plan. There will be several production complex, industrial complex in the south, mostly in the south part of the country, including, for example, this copper and gold purification or deep processing plants will be made, etc. And what I have found, again, a little bit confusing is in this plant and all this at the forum, it is not clear who will do all this industrialization park? Yes, they say that it will be PPP, public-private partnership, but we have tried it, but many plan now staying on the paper in Mongolia. And to me, it should be very clear the process, state, at which level the state will participate. Certainly it needs to be there when making very clear feasibility plan, feasibility study, project plan. Then the state is to help in raising funds, and after a certain period after finishing the project, the state should already say that at which level it will be a public industrial park, for example. Otherwise, if it is private sector not dominantly participated in any rendezvous that Mongolian government started, it always ended, we call it, we wanted this best, but it turned out as usual. So that's why it should be very clear plan when the state comes in and when it comes out. Without that clear policy or even a law, if needed, then all plans will stay on the paper as usual. So that's the first topic I want to introduce. Well, second topic is about another constitutional amendment. Everybody knows that Mongolia was working on that for quite some time. According to the speaker, this constitutional amendment, which was adopted the last day of May, is continuation of the amendments of 2019, where we have given a right for more right. It was only 4 parliament members could be cabinet members. Now, because this amendments now, almost all ministers are parliament members. So what had happened with this amendment is, from now on, there will be one chamber, 126 parliament members parliament in Mongolia. It was 76, now it's 126, or 50 members more. 50 seats will be more. Parliament election will be based on mixed structure of majoritarian and proportional vote. So 78 parliament members will be elected by majoritarian system, or they will be elected from 78 constituencies. We now have 76, so obviously they will add 2, probably in Ulaanbaatar city, I guess, constituencies. And the 48 parliament members will be by the list of their political parties, which means that every political parties will not only 78 in each, one in each constituency, but 48 party members list. And the voters will have a chance, a long paper, every party put 48 names. And these names to be names that people like, not the names that are involved in other scandals and corruption, like as it was before. Mongolians have very short memory. And people are involved. Some parliament members are involved in, for example, small, medium enterprise support fund or wrongdoings. They are still elected. Well, that's one thing. So we have a new system of parliament. And so the question comes, why Mongolians have changed justice? Why have they have increased the seats numbers? According to the Prime Minister, which also reflects public opinion, the parliament members behave now like they are at the peak of power. And Mongolia having like 76 prime ministers. And they participate in all this executive power, directly, indirectly, through. Whenever the meeting comes, whenever the vote comes about on important issues, they are bargaining about their and their related people's participation in tender, loan, discounted loan, etc. And this kind of, they keep the issues as a collateral for their own interests. That, according to the Prime Minister, which everybody almost shares this opinion. And Parliament members are becoming a substantial part of the judicial system through impacting on the way how they make decisions. You know, we came even sometimes situation where Parliament members, if they are traveling, then even Mongolian Parliament cannot have full sessions. For example, we have 76 members, and then some standing committee has 12, 13 members. And just say 7 or 11 Parliament members, standing committee members sit down together and they approve they support the law. Just 7 people support any law, and they can ask the plenary session to adopt the law, which is, for example, also in its own turn approved by 70% of whoever is present at this parliamentary open sessions, plenary sessions of the parliament. So it is a kind of high concentration of one parliament member power in the parliament. This is the way they want to change. They are now increased by 50 seats. Now, after this, they need to change also the law on parliament, the law on sessions of the parliament. They need to change political party law and the law about election, etc. So there will be several changes, legal changes, and probably physical changes, because this state palace, we call it Grey Palace, I doubt that it will accommodate another 50 parliament member more. So I guess because in this palace, all powers are there, president, government, parliament are all in the same building. Probably one of them would leave to another locations first. Secondly, my comment is, okay, it can be 128 at the end, okay, representing, because before one parliament member was representing 27,000 on the average parliament the votes, but now recently it became 47,000 votes, which became less the capacity of communication of one parliament member with its constituencies or voters. And in that sense, 126 probably is better. But however, it will not be better if the principles are not changed. The main principles is immunity of the parliament member. It should be taken off, because they are the same people and they should have the same right as ordinary citizens. In Scandinavian countries, they don't have this kind of immunity. And they also use public transport. This kind of changes, the principal changes, must be done. Otherwise, I will not see that we will immediately will have a fruit from all this increase. That's my comment on the second issue. Our third issue tonight at our de facto review is 2023 state budget is again amended. Well, this is the decision of the government cabinet also on May 31st. Now they are proposing to the parliament to have amendments in the constitutions, which usually happens before. In the law, in particular during the COVID years, the government was always amending. Because they had not enough sources, income of the budget, they had always more expenses due to many reasons, and they were always asking permission to borrow money. But this time, the picture is different. According to Minister of Finance, this time we make these amendments not because we don't have money. Because we have money, that's what he's suggesting. In fact, the GDP growth for the quarter first of this year was almost 8%, which is the highest in Asia, they say. And we have more interests, also they say, of foreign direct investment, which we need to see. So what they are suggesting is, once we have money, let's increase salary. Salary of the public officers. Public officers, we call it state officers. The state officers altogether is 18% of total labor market of Mongolia, labor potential of Mongolia. And it should be 15%, 3.5% less, they say. But there are part of particular segment of the state officers who has very minimal salary of 500, for example, MNT, which is just around less than $200, and it will be 1 million MNT or $300, etc., etc. And every child will have a money. But a very interesting formula I have seen firsthand that one can refuse to have the children money. I think which was a better formula than we will give only to people who have more money, who have less money. So it's a better formula, I think, they suggested. So in particular, they will increase the pension, we call it payment. Though in Mongolia somehow pension insurance, it is very much strange name, but that's what in Mongolian we call it. So, so they will increase, and the people in particular who got retired before 2000, their retirement salary will be, or the payment is less than 500,000 also, and it looks like they will increase that 500,000 to 700,000. For remaining who gets more than this, majority of people have this less retirement money. But for those who is getting more than this amount, it looks like they will receive 10% increase. Whatever the increase is, I would like to share my opinion on this endless circle of this inflation and increased salary, and salary increase creates more inflation. More inflation needs to create more salary, etc. In this endless circle, or in this circle, Mongolia has been for quite some time, and so we should address the very reason of that circle. The very reason of the circle is two. One, the money is given when the equivalent value is not created. It always will create inflation. One. Second, the exchange rate. Dollar is always stronger. Mongolian tugrik is being devalued substantially, though for the last 2 months it goes a little bit down better. But in the general, the trend is always dollar, MNT is becoming always weaker and weaker. The graph will be up and up in relation to dollar. Why? Main reason for that is Mongolian government bonds. We got bonds for the last 12 years, and every bond is paid by a new bond from international capital market. The government is saying that we did a good job because we have got bond with cheaper rate. Yes, but still, bond is paid by bond. Debt is paid by another debt. Why? Because the government is not creating another dollar with the proceeds that they receive from the dollar bond, like they are misusing, like, for example, this development bank crisis. They receive bond, they receive US dollar, and they spend it for something that does not create not only dollar, but also even domestic money. So this circle, we should stop it. And we should, in particular, these new parliament members, 126 of them now, hopefully they should stop the government to borrow foreign bond, to borrow foreign fund through issuing bond. Why? Because the government, until the government is proving that they can use it effectively in the sense of creating more dollar value rather than a Mongolian MNT. It will take a long time, but for a while we should have, how we call it, veto on government issuing bond. And I think this international organizations like IMF, ADB, World Bank should support this motion. Otherwise, we are becoming into more and more debt with such a bad management, and as a result, Tugrug is devaluing substantially, and people are buying capacity, or money is the value of storage of value, and this keep going down. As a result, at the end, the politicians will need to increase their salary, in particular just before election, as this time again. So we need to stop this circle until we have a substantial enough domestic capacity to export substantial more diversified products, to earn more US dollar to pay these bonds, and then we will not have the shortage of foreign currency. That's my take. So these are 3 topics I want to share for this week. What has happened in Mongolia, 3 important events. The first about industrialization forum happened in last week on May 26th. Second is another constitutional amendments is made. Now we have 50 seats more parliament. The third, now the state budget is again amended or being amended. What does it mean? How can we stop devaluation of Mongolian Tugriks? So these are 3 topics. Thank you very much for watching us, and see you next week at the same time.